And now we have our final set of presentations. We have Dave Stodden, who will be talking about a lot of different things.
It is 5 o'clock. I'm going to run through some of this quickly. Jackie couldn't be here because of an issue with this project we did together in terms of collecting all the data for the mechanism.
Does anyone have it in their computer?
So anyway, while we're getting going, no, that's better. We're not controlling obesity very well at all. Iowa committee just came out with a nice little report that says we're not reducing obesity levels. We cannot keep physical activity levels from early childhood, which are always higher than they are later in life. We define physical activity. And we don't understand behavioral mechanisms to be able to promote change in either one of those in terms of those negative trajectories. We're having a hard time doing that. But what we're trying to do, what we're trying to look at is to understand whether or not the idea of this motor skill, confidence, or coordination and control, if we're better at it, does that lead to long-term positive trajectories in terms of physical activity, health-related physical fitness, obesity, psychological outcomes? So we're trying to look again at this from a developmental perspective to see if we can track that. To see if this actually may be a behavioral mechanism to allow us to track things long-term, because that's what we're having a hard time doing. A lot of the literature that we look at in terms of interventions, they don't look at it from a developmental perspective. Just have a sustainability, a review article in terms of sustainability of physical activity interventions that is coming out. It's in press now. 12 out of 24 that met the guidelines, PRISMA guidelines, actually showed a sustained increase in physical activity. Only 12 out of a total of 24. So half of them were successful. All of them, I'm pretty sure, were funded to a large degree, but only half of them worked. And out of half of them, the half that worked, we looked at increases in MVPA, whether it was self-report or accelerometers or pedometers, about 4 minutes a day. There were a couple that were 8 minutes a day. So we're having a really hard time being able to predict things long-term and sustain physical activity levels. So there's quite a few limitations in the literature. A quick focus here, this possible model idea in terms of understanding is motor skill, confidence, developing motor coordination and control. Does that allow us to be able to better predict pieces of the puzzle that are health-related, physical activity, health-related fitness, obesity, and some psychological outcomes that we're just beginning to get into? If we do develop motor competency early childhood, will that lead to a positive spiral of engagement overall in terms of all these pieces of the puzzle, health-related? Or if we, on the other hand, if we do not develop motor competence, what's going to happen? What is our physiological profile going to look like? Physical activity, obesity, pieces of the puzzle, as well as health outcomes, which we haven't even started. So, we are the first group that has taken a developmental approach in terms of looking at this across a large time span. There's quite a bit more data coming out in terms of longitudinal looking at this now, so there's a lot of data that's actually going to be similar to what I present here. So we're going to look at the relationships among all these variables across time. There's a 4 and 5-year-old age group, a 7 and 8-year-old age group, and a 10 and 11-year-old age group. Had a total of 411 kids, stratified pretty well in terms of Hispanic, African American, and white. And the big piece of the puzzle, we're asking, what do we use for assessments? Well, that's a big major question that I'm trying to attack, and that's the second part of the presentation, is understanding what do we use to measure change in motor coordination, because we want the best predictive validity that we can have for our motor tests. And most of the literature out there uses either a process or a product, a qualitative or a quantitative, but they don't use both. So what we've done is be able to use both quantitative and qualitative assessments to be able to look at how well they predict those outcome measures of physical activity, fitness, and obesity. you've heard of the TGMD, very good. Developmental sequences or something else, I'll attack that in the next piece of the puzzle. But 2 qualitative assessments right here, pretty global overall. We also use product scores, which are different. In Europe, they use something called the KTK. It's in German, I won't try to pronounce it, but it's a very good product-oriented test for locomotion and balance, global overall motor coordination. So we're using both product and process to be able to put them together to be able to see how well they predict PA, 5 days of accelerometry use, weekdays and weekends, at least 9 hours per day use, perceived motor competence, use the harder scales. So early we had to use a couple different scales based on age. And health-related fitness, we use Fitnessgram protocols as well as grip strength. Another piece of this puzzle right here, to be able to develop latent variables to understand motor coordination as well as fitness as well as perceived competence ideas. We use SEM modeling. And the stats that are produced here, I'm not exactly sure because I haven't been part of that equation because Jackie's from Ohio State and I was at Texas Tech. But overall, in terms of understanding the big pieces of the puzzle here, do relationships change across time? Do we see stronger relationships between motor competence, motor skill competence, and the pieces of the outcome measures over time? That's the big question. And the answer to that with our big piece of the puzzle here in terms of physical activity, the answer is yes. So if we look at all the motor skill pieces, put them together in that latent variable, do we see an increase in the strength of relationship over time? And the answer is yes. So, great. Fabulous. What about all the other pieces of the puzzle? What about when we start to be able to look at these ideas of mediating factors? What mediates the relationship? What do the relationships look like in terms of more complex relationships? And overall, what these data say is yes, perceived motor competence actually mediates the relationship between motor skills and PA, and the strength of the relationship increases across those age groups again. Same thing for health-related fitness. This one's a little more convoluted, but overall you see the strength of the relationship between the motor skill competence and motor coordination and health-related fitness is quite strong. And it gets stronger over time. And it's even stronger in an 18 to 25-year-old data set into young adulthood. So we have pretty strong relationships association between motor skills and health-related fitness. A lot of these have to do with both direct mechanisms, with neuromuscular mechanisms, as well as indirect mechanisms with the types of choices of physical activities that we do that are related to health-related fitness. Okay? So overall, our main question is understanding using the most comprehensive motor assessments that we could use in a field test, because we need to be able to go get a whole lot of kids and do this in the field, because we can't bring in 400 to 500 kids into a lab. So what did we actually find when you go out to the field and use a lot of motor skill tests to be able to figure out these relationships? The relationship between motor skill competence and physical activity, motor skill competence and health-related fitness, motor skill competence and obesity actually strengthens across time, which is good. The one piece in here that I didn't show was the actual obesity data, but that's shown as well as other data from pretty strong longitudinal and cross-sectional data from Belgium and Portugal, as well as Australia has some as well. But overall, if you look at all the data that's been combined over the past 5 years, from 2008 when this model first came out, it's all beginning to show a clear picture. Perceived motor competence mediates the relationship between physical activity, or between motor skill competence and physical activity. We're not exactly talking about causation here because we believe, based on the model, which don't have time to explain it that well, overall, they're recursive, synergistic relationships. One impacts another. And we hopefully that if we can develop a positive spiral of engagement by directing that motor skill idea early, that we will be able to track physical activity and fitness and obesity much better across time. That's the whole point here. So that's a real quick and dirty run through for these data. If you have any questions about those, please I imagine I missed quite a few things here, but the idea is, do we have a pretty decent measure of how to track things across time? Is motor skill competence important for all those health-related fitness and physical activity and obesity ideas? And the answer that we're coming up with, working with all these different groups, there's basically 5 or 6 working groups that are doing this, the answer is yes, it is. Now we need to go get some more funding, and we need to intervene. And we really need to see what happens with intervention. We need to be able to train teachers, because if we can train teachers to be able to have a really significant impact on motor skills early, how well will that translate across time? But we need to be able to train teachers to do it well, so we get an impact. One of the problems with these data is that we don't see, one study I looked at, 9-month intervention to be able to impact motor skills. It was a motor skill intervention over 9 months, and they didn't see very much change in terms of motor skills over 9 months, doing it for 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. That's our problem. We got to hit that hard. So, yeah.
Isn't there some data that just came out recently that said the obesity rate seems to be going down, but they're attributing that mostly to nutritional?
There's, basically plateaued in some places it's not. It's actually increasing in other parts of the world, but in some parts of the United States, it's actually plateauing, perhaps going down a little bit. So, how much money have we thrown into it? A whole bunch of money we've thrown into it. The I1 committee actually said that we're not alleviating it, we're not decreasing it, but some very recent information says that we are a little bit. So, yes.
2 questions. One is, are you considering to collect data on nutritional status?
No, we did not. The project we had was R21, so we basically collected all these motor skill fitness physical activity data. We weren't able to pull that off.
It would be interesting to classify obese and morbid obese children. And the other question is, why are you grouping by doing age groups and not doing just correlation across age? Why you're doing age bands, right?
Yeah.
Why?
One of the things that I wasn't able to talk about, this idea of perceived motor competence, that's one of those real critical. Go back to the age of 7. What happens at 7? We're able to start conserving, and I'm not the expert on this, but be able to conserve in terms of understanding whether or not we're skilled or not. So there's a certain time in that, around 6, 7, 8, where we begin to figure out if we're competent or not. And we believe that's a really important time where we're really going to see these relationships change in terms of strength.
It'll be interesting to see the developmental curve, and if you have a chance to show young adults as well, so you can see where they're going, and if young adults also have the same type of relationship.
Just have the 18 to 25-year-old data is pretty strong with respect to fitness, and just got some data collected. We're going to be looking at that, pretty comprehensive data on 45 to 65-year-old women. The pilot data that I have with that is just as strong. It's just as strong as in 18 to 25, which is stronger than it is in basically the late childhood, adolescent data. So it seems to be getting stronger after beginning adulthood, and then it kind of plateaus off again. But again, there's only 3 studies that I know of in adults that have looked at the relationship between motor skills and any aspect of fitness, physical activity, or obesity.